All right, this is gonna be my Arms Warrior guide for Midnight Season 1. Go over the gear, talents, hero talents as well, and just general stuff. I think Warrior is very strong. More specifically, Arms. I mean, you could play Fury, but they're both they're both capable. But this will be Arms. This will just be an Arms guide. This is the gear I'm running. Um, it basically a simple rule of thumb. If you're not simming your gear, just put on crit haste. Any piece of gear with crit haste is good. Yeah, pretty much anything crit haste is gonna be good. Um, like Petasaron, great place to use your bonus rolls. You get crit haste weapon, head, neck, and belt, and very good ring here as well. Um, you can also roll for these rings here, as it's good haste and good crit, and there's a passive set bonus. Now for raid, you want Gaze from Dream Rift. You can also play Part of the Ancient Hunger. This will probably be easier to pug and just get if you don't have a Mythic Raid Guild. And you can also, in the end game, you probably really want a Plume, because it's like a minute buff timer, which you're mostly a minute class with Avatar. With how anger management works, is when you spend rage, you get cooldown. So Avatar is basically a minute cooldown if played correctly. Now for embellishments, you're gonna use the same thing. It's gonna be the Arcana Weave, buffs you and your teammates. So it's very good. You can put it on back and wrist because it doesn't scale with item level, I believe. So these are like the least valuable pieces of gear to put on for crafted gear. And like I said, crit haste is your go-to. You want to sim your character first of all, but ideally you're gonna want to have more crit than haste, because you want to play Potion of Recklessness. I'm pretty sure it's just gonna be best for everyone. Once you have the right stats, as it'll proc crit and it gives you so much crit. Like when I proc mine, I go up to 65%. 66, pretty crazy. My haste is kind of low, but you play with Berserker's Rage on weapon. You technically could play Haste Flask if you don't have enough haste, but if it's going to overlap your threshold for crit to proc on the potion, just play Crit Flask. It's very good. In terms of talents, we'll go over Colossus first. Colossus is better in pretty much all the dungeons. It's not fantastic on single target, but you can pull funnel on most bosses. You might have to get creative in some dungeons, but if you're just doing weekly keys or like lower keys, just play whichever hero spec is more fun. To be honest, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're pushing the absolute highest keys, or you want to, you're playing Colossus and pretty much all these, except for Algathar. Slayer build is very good. I'll show that in a minute. And then Skyreach. You definitely want more single target for the average player, but in a coordinated group, you probably still want to play Colossus if you can find ways to get funnel, like on first boss and last boss, or and third boss. Yeah. Colossus. Your class tree is going to be the same for Slayer and Colossus. Pretty much run this the entire every key. You can drop movement speed or wrecking throw or interpose or piercing howl if you really wanted. Wrecking throw it's alright. Like maybe Mysara, you can use it for Vardraza in her intermission phase, but most of the time I do not press this button. You can put it here as well, Rumbling Earth, but I just play like this. It's important to have Leech, Pain and Gain for healing, Field Dressing for healing, and Second Wind for healing. You can switch this. You're mostly playing Fearless every dungeon because of, Seat, right? In Seat, the Subjugators, they put out a debuff you can clear with movement impairing effects, so Berserker's Rage is good there. You can also use it in Pit of Sauron. The Frost guys put a debuff. The Cold Wraiths or whatever they're called. You can clear that debuff with Berserker Rage. And Nexus, the big circle on the left side, left hallway, you can clear those as well with Berserker Rage. Might be forgetting something. I would say the most important talent that's technically flexible is going to be Stance Mastery. You're going to drop Crushing Force. It's just a little bit of a single target loss. You can technically drop this, but slam and cleave damage is way more valuable. And this still gives you damage with 3% extra crit damage. So you want this because it makes D-Stance one of the best defensive buttons in the game. I think it's very strong. It prevents one-shots, so you're going to want to play this. Like you can always stack D-Stance with Spell Reflect or Dive of the Sword or Rallying Cry, like especially on the Wind mini boss after first boss. The knockback, you can just tank that shit with D-Stance and +1 defensive. Yeah, it's gonna be the exact same for pretty much every build. Just move whichever one of these flexible talents if you want to. Hero talent tree is the same. These are the only two you can swap. This talent is useless. Don't worry about it. This talent also useless because you don't play Ignore Pain. You can technically play it, but I don't think this even stacks. It's mostly Protection Warrior. The only important thing to memorize here, though, obviously stacking up Colossus Might, you get 2 stacks with Mortal Strike, or you get 1 stack with Mortal Strike, but if you're cleaving it, you get 2 stacks, and then cleave will give you 1 stack as well. Crits on Mortal Strike give you an extra stack. So if you're cleaving with Sweeping Strikes and you crit, that's 4 stacks. So keep that in mind. This talent actually just got buffed, by the way, by 10% on Mortal Strike and Slam. I believe on the Warrior Discord, they said it's like 3.5% single target or something. I don't know. I don't know the math on it, but it's pretty good. But these talents right here, these new ones from Midnight, very important. They're mostly passive. You don't have to think about it too much. Like free deep wounds on Demolish, Mortal Strike crits, increase your bleed damage. But this is important. It comes into play mostly with sudden death procs. The reason I like this one in single target, you can play around this with Executioner's Precision. So let's say you're in single target. You got all your cooldowns. You got Avatar, Colossus Smash. And let's say you have at least one sudden death proc, which is the free execute. You can press that before or right after you're gonna demolish. Try to stack it up 2 times if you have enough. If not, at least get the one execution off. And then that gives you at least 35% bonus damage to stack on a guaranteed crit. And it is very good. You'll definitely notice the boost in damage there, because when Mortal Strike doesn't crit, it's kind of like it hits like a wet noodle sometimes. So try to play around this talent if you can. Demolish is technically a DR ability as well. I think they just put it on there so people don't feel as bad about, casting an ability and standing still, but it's good. And now for the spec tree for arms, this is going to be the exact same for Colossus. Pretty much every key. There's nothing to change here. Unless you really wanted to play Ignore Pain, which might be helpful in like some one-shot situations. But I wouldn't worry about it. This is passive, way easier for the average player. It's actually really good healing too. It used to be way better before the 12.05 patch, but because it used to proc off of cleave, but now it only procs off of slam. I will go over a quick little rotation as well. When you do your opener, you're gonna Avatar for 20% damage. You're gonna Colossus Smash for your 35%. Unless you stacked with your tier set, you're gonna get a longer one as well. But basically, you can stack up with the Apex talent. This is very big this season. Basically turns Slam into Heroic Strike, which gives you Armor Pen and just does a shit ton of damage. The other thing is, Heroic Strike is basically #1 prio, because, like I said, it gives you Armor Pen. It also increases the bonus of your next Colossus Smash by up to 15%, which then, in turn, works with your tier set, which you can extend. And this is very good. You can get some long Colossus Smash windows and just do tons of damage forever. The biggest things to play around though, Sweeping Strikes is huge. It's not a duration anymore. It's a stack. So you basically get 12 with the right talents. With this talent, you can get more stacks with this talent, but you just play the 100% damage on Sweeping Strikes, which is amazing. But whenever you smash, Colossus Smash that is, you get a free stack or free 12 stacks of Sweeping Strikes. So you never want to overlap these. Always track your sweeping strike stacks. I use AJ CDM. Any CDM works. Just track your sweeping strikes, man. It's very important. You never want to waste these, if you can avoid it. Yeah. Most important thing though, fervor of battle. This has always been here. I remember there was a fervor of battle build back in Dragonflight that was decent for a little while. I think in season 2. But it was never anything crazy. But now that Heroic Strike is here, Heroic Strike, if you read the top, rank 1, all modifiers and talents that affect Slam also work on Heroic Strike. So anything that says plus, Slam damage is buffing Heroic Strike, which already does tons of damage. But this, basically, if there's 3 targets, you're going to target your main target, you know, whether it be a boss or a prio mob. And you're gonna prio cleave. You're never gonna push slam in AoE. Or I wouldn't say never, but ideally, you press cleave as much as possible because it buffs your slams and it automatically casts the slam for you, boosting it by 50%. So you're getting 50% extra damage on your Heroic Strike, making it even better than it already is. So it's just, that's what people refer to as arms funnel. So always keep that in mind. Now the other thing, with the rotation, you want to play around Ravager, because you're always playing around cleaves, and Smash gives you 2 cleaves for free. The other thing is, forgot to mention, Sweeping Strikes works with Fervor Battle, so it'll cleave the slam as well, by the way. So this talent gets insane value, just insane synergy with the whole talent tree. Yeah, you're gonna charge in, you're gonna rend, you're gonna avatar for damage, you're gonna Colossus Smash, then you'll put your Ravager down, obviously get your pot in there, and then you send your 3 cleaves, then you're going to Mortal Strike, and then you can send your Demolish. Ideally, before the poll is gathered on, you know, like opener, try to stack up Colossal Might as much as possible so that way you can get as much damage on your Demolish as possible. But if you can't get to 10 stacks, it's not the end of the world. But after you do, you know, that, after you send your Demolish, it's important to then watch your Sweeping Strike stacks, because that works with collateral damage here. Every time you cleave, you stack up to 75% in total on your next cleave. And this also works with Fervor Battle. Like I mentioned, how this slam cleaves, it works with this. So anytime you cleave with Sweeping Strikes, you're getting 1 stack, which is why you then just fill with Overpower and Mortal Strike. Never press Heroic Strike in AoE, because cleave will always do it for you. So yeah, you're basically AoE rotation filler after you send all your major cooldowns. It's going to be cleave, overpower, mortal strike, cleave, overpower, mortal strike. And you just repeat over and over. Because every time you switch, it's 1 stack, 2 stack, 3 stack, and then max stack collateral damage on cleave. That's why you just rinse and repeat. And then when your cooldowns come back up, you repeat the burst window opener again, and then just go back and forth. So I'll demonstrate real quick. Charge, rend, avatar, smash, pot, ravager, 1, 2, 3, mortal strike, demolish, and then boom, it's stacked. 1, 2, 3, and it's stacked again. 1, 2, 3. Sweeping strikes right out. Right, run that again. 1, 2, 3. And you just repeat that over and over. With the new cooldown, your demolish is going to come up very fast. Just send it, even if you don't have Colossus Smash, because you'll get it back. Then you smash again. 1, 2, 3. Mortal strike, overpower, and then you just repeat again until you get your next demolish. You're always going to get 2 demolishes, like in between your next Colossus Smash window, but that's okay, because like I said, with the tier set, you can get a very long duration on Colossus Smash, so it is very good if you're playing correctly. So yeah, give that a try. Colossus is a little more complex than Slayer, not by much, but there is more to think about and more to optimize if you want, ideal single target. Single target rotation is basically the same with the opener. Just remove cleave, unless you have funnel. If you have 3 targets on a boss, you're cleaving. You're doing your regular AoE to rotation um, until your funnel dies. If once there's a single target, then you're weaving. Mortal Strike is prio. Obviously, Heroic Strike is ultimate prio. And then you fill in with Overpower. If you have no Overpower or Mortal Strike or Heroic Strike, then you slam. Because slam procs deep wounds. And it's good filler. Which is this. Mortal Wounds. So yeah. That's pretty much your AoE rotation and single target to keep in mind. Now when looking at Slayer, class tree is the same. Your stats are the same. You still want the same stats. Doesn't matter. Doesn't change at all. They buff Bladestorm a lot this season in the last couple of patches. So you're playing Culling Cyclone. Overpower is pretty good as filler, especially with Dreadnought. So you play this talent because it buffs Overpower a good amount. Main thing to think about is you're playing around your sudden death procs because they give you free Reap the Storms. And it also stacks up your Bladestorm with Imminent Demise here. It lets Bladestorm hit up to 3 more times, which is very strong because the duration doesn't change. You just do more damage within the 5-second window. Reap the Storm procs a little different than it used to. It's only off of cleave. They want it more AoE damage based. So you can only proc this from cleave or sudden death, which is why sudden death is so good. Not only does execute do a ton of damage, but it procs Reap the Storm, which is very good because it also applies Overwhelmed, which increases your damage per stack, which is this, up to 5 stacks. The same thing applies though. You're playing Fervor Battle. Most importantly, Massacre is very good in this build. But yeah, your cleave rotation is the same. As you get sweeping strikes, you just don't have the bonus cleave damage, so you're only splitting 75% damage instead of 100. But it's okay, because your single target is way better. Obviously, don't play Ravager. Slayer requires Bladestorm. Otherwise, you would be trolling. Basically, AoE rotation is the exact same because you're still playing around collateral damage. It's just, instead of worrying a ton about, Mortal Strikes, Execute is way stronger. And like I said, you're fishing for Reap the Storm procs. I can show you the rotation though. It's gonna be the same. Charge, Rend, Avatar, Smash, and you can Bladestorm. I didn't pot, but pot there. And then cleave, 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 boom. I got a Sudden Death proc, send that. Cleave again. You want to spam Overpower though. Overpower is very good. The Sweeping Strikes right out. And then just fill with the prio again. Sudden Death proc. Boom. Overpower. Overpower. Collateral damage. Boom. Slayer's way easier to understand than Colossus. You kind of just start hitting the buttons that glow, man. I'm not gonna lie. You just hit your cooldown window, Bladestorm, and then just hit the random shit that lights up, dude. That's how you play it. But you do want to prio Overpower if you can to stack it up. Mortal Strike's pretty low prio in Slayer build, but in Execute, I can hit this guy. He basically, it's pretty simple as before. You always want to execute, fill with Overpower, execute, and then Mortal Strike if you can. If you're over generating rage, you can spam execute like 3 times, and get away with it, even though you're technically overstacking executioner's precision. But wasting rage is worse, and execute does a ton of damage because it has tons of modifiers in your trees. So if you're overcapping on rage, you can definitely get away with spamming execute a little bit. It's kind of a thing you have to get the feel for and execute. Execute can be a little more difficult in terms of balancing your rage, but that's something you'll have to get the hang of because you kind of just have to practice it. Now, general thoughts about arms. I think it's very strong in terms of fizz comp. Like I said, Colossus is very insane on overall damage. It's a little weaker on single target. Like I said, it just got buffed. There's ways to work around it. And if you're in a coordinated group, pretty much all the keys, it's going to be better. Except for, Algothar. Algothar, you definitely can play Slayer. Or, matter of fact, you should be playing Slayer. That's what I mean to say. Another little tip I forgot to mention. Bladestorm does the same thing as Fearless. So anything that Fearless Berserker Rage can clear, Bladestorm could do the same. Also, last boss of Windrunner, Restless Heart, that big circle that comes out, like covering the room. If you Bladestorm it, you can ignore the damage and the debuff. And same thing with Demolish. But it's very, I wouldn't recommend it on, I wouldn't recommend trying it too much on Demolish because it's a little more finicky because the boss has to be, in the same spot for you to hit it and dodge the wave. But Bladestorm, you can just spin and crossover on this last boss. Yeah, like I said, I think Arms is pretty strong in the fizz count. Whether you're running Ret, Rogue, Barrel, Hunter, whichever. I think it's pretty good. I think Arms has actually been, at least Colossus has been pretty solid all season. It's just had issues with single target. But yeah, I think pretty much this is everything. I think if you enjoy Arms, you should try it. Or if you don't like Fury more so, give Arms a try. Personally, I like Colossus more. I know some people prefer Slayer because it's more simple and sometimes it flows better. And as a proc based, people like procs, right? Hit the glowy button, do big damage, and Bladestorm. It's an iconic ability. But personally, I prefer how um I prefer how Colossus feels this season. I think it's a little more to think, and it also just feels better for me. It's more fun, in my opinion. But that's just me. Play whichever you like. If you like Fury, play that shit instead. At the end of the day, we're here to play the game for fun. So who cares about what the warrior meta is, right? Just play whichever's fun. If you have any questions, let me know. If I had missed anything, let me know. Or if you think I went over something too quickly, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Have a good one.